And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Elton Anderson, who had a near-death experience due to malaria. Elton, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Glad to be on here.
Well, we're glad to have you. And Elton, let's start on the day that, we may need a little backstory first on how you got sick and then how it led into your NDE.
Okay, so this was the NDE started because of travel. So back in I call this my former life. I was a celebrity and commercial photographer. So I worked with brands from HBO, Target, celebrities from every walk of life. And what I used to do was in my spare time, when I would have some off time, I would go and travel. So my schedule was pretty much I would work for 3 months, shoot. And then for 2 weeks, I would pick a region and travel around it. So whether that's Europe, I would go to the Amalfi Coast and then the south of France and then Sweden, or I would pick South America and go to, Chile or Brazil. So my love for travel and my love for seeing the world has always been in my soul for the first part of my life. I'm 43 now, but I would say from 0 to 40, I could travel anywhere. And what led me to getting malaria was because I was hosting a travel show in the year of 2019. So I was hosting a travel show. It was a really great travel show. It was called Lens of Culture. We would go to places in America like that had the experience of the African American experience. So we would go to like New Orleans. We would go to Brooklyn. Then we went to Dominican Republic, and finally the final show was in Ghana. And so while in Ghana, that was just such an amazing experience. It was the year of the return. But as you may know, malaria and those kind of diseases are prevalent in most West African countries. So what happened was I did not take the malaria prevention because every time I take malaria prevention, I would have such a negative reaction. And so I went over there. I have already been to 26 countries in Africa. So I felt like and I'm African as well. I'm from Liberia. My mother's Liberian. So I felt like I was invincible. We filmed the show. Everything's great. And I get back to America. When I get back to America, this was the beginning of my spiritual journey. I heard a message from God that said, Elton, let everything go and leave America. So the plan was I would get finished filming. This is August of 2019. And as soon as I got finished filming, I would then go on this year-long journey where I would spend 1 month living in a different country. So the idea was I was going to start in Brazil and then work my way around the world and then document it on my YouTube channel. So I gave away everything. I gave away all of my clothes. I gave away my boyfriend at the time. I gave away my friendships, my career, my camera. I gave away literally everything. And I fit my whole life into one bag. And so I was ready to go. So the irony of that is that I didn't even know this whole time I was filled with malaria. I had no idea, but got this message to let everything go. And so on September 1st, I headed to Brazil, which was my first city. And the thing about malaria is it is a parasite. So the parasite attaches to your red blood cells, and your red blood cells are in all parts of your body. So it could be in the liver, it could be in the pancreas, it could be in the eyes, it could be in the legs. And for me, it was in all those places. So I'm in Brazil for the first week. First few days are feeling great. And we get to maybe, I'm doing all kind of adventures. I'm like air gliding off of mountains, everything. And I would say it got to like September 6th or 7th. And that was the day just everything just started shutting down all at once. And I remember I called my mother. It was around 9 or 10 a.m. and I was in my Airbnb. And I remember calling my mom. I said, Mom, I think I am about to die. I could feel my body shutting down. I couldn't walk. My insides were, the pain was unbearable. And I started going blind and dizzy. And so I told my mom, I said, I really feel like I'm going to die, Mom. So I don't know what to do. I could try to go to a hospital. I'm in Brazil all alone. I'm in Rio de Janeiro all by myself. And luckily, I had one friend who was very familiar in Brazil, but he was in another part. He was in northern Brazil. So what happened was when I told my mom I was going to die, I lay down, and my mother is so, like, I've never really needed my parents for much. Like, I've been one of the most independent children ever. My dad has 4 kids, and I'm the most independent of them all. And when I told my mother I was going to die, this was the first time that I really, really needed her. So later that evening, she hopped on a plane, and uh, without any question. And then so she was there in Brazil the next morning. So what happened between that 24-hour period, roughly, was that that's when I would say the height of the near death experience happened. I would say that was the height. In this time, all I remember was sweating, losing all of my energy. I had absolutely no energy in my body. And uh, as the day turned into night, I remember there were 4 white figures above me. And they felt feminine in energy, if I could say anything, but it felt like they were in white. And that is when I first saw the other side. I felt it was it was a warm light that kind of pushed me into whatever this other side, whatever this afterlife or energy space was. And all I remember is that I had a choice to stay in this other side or stay on this earthly plane. And so I don't remember spending a long time there. It could have been hours, it could have been minutes. It just felt like more of a state than a looking at my clock. I mean, looking at my watch. And I remember just, I don't remember, like, again, I don't remember seeing anybody or seeing anything. I said on my TikTok, where we found each other from, I said that I didn't really see like my loved ones that had passed. Like, I've lost both of my grandmothers in 2000, in the year 2000. And so I have had grandmother in decades. And so I didn't see like my grandmother, I didn't see friends that I've lost, I didn't see anybody. But what I felt was I could only compare it to like an ocean of energy. It felt like what I had started to read about, where this human experience is like an ocean. And when the ocean is an ocean of souls, and when you get into this life experience, when we get into our bodies, it's the same thing as like the wave hitting the shore. And so our whole experience is literally when that wave splashes. And then when the splash is over, you go back into the ocean. And that analogy was exactly what it felt like. It felt like perfect warmth, perfect temperature, perfect energy. Even if temperature probably wasn't even a thing in that experience, but it just felt like I had literally died, and it felt like I had switched into a new timeline in the afterwards. But we'll get to that in a second. And I just remember being completely frozen. I couldn't move my body. And again, I don't remember if I slept. I don't remember if I woke up. All I remember is that it was the next morning, and I had just enough energy to pick up the phone for my mother. and she came to the Airbnb. We had to get me into a wheelchair because I could not walk. And um, we had to get me to a hospital where I stayed for a week. And during that time, I did, every time I got to sleep, I did kind of go to that place again, but not in the same depth as it was that first night. But I started to feel the, uh, I would say, the energy of that place. And I wanted to go back. There was a a slight desire to go back, and um, I remember being in the hospital for 7 days. Like I was literally in the hospital bed and put up to IVs, and I lost about 25 pounds during that time because malaria is a very, very aggressive disease or aggressive condition. It usually kills about 60 to 70% of the people that have it. So I had a one third chance of surviving. But as luck would have it, I was not far from one of Brazil's best infectious disease clinics. So we were able to go, and that's their specialty, is like things like malaria. So we were able to go to this huge facility. And I remember my mother, they didn't have a bed for my mother. So for a whole week, my mother slept in two chairs. So one chair was for her back and the other chair was for her legs. And I just remember thinking like, wow, this is what love is. Like this act of getting on a plane, no question, coming to a country. My mother is a 5'1" Liberian woman. She does not speak Portuguese. She has never been to Brazil, but I just remember this deep connection with my mother. And I remember just anytime I had a little bit of strength to look over, I would see her sleeping in those two chairs. And that was uh, my biggest reason for staying Earthside at that time. And so after that, the struggle back to, health took about a month. And to be completely honest, I have not been the same since then because 6 months later, the pandemic happened, and I decided to go back out into my journey to kind of seek this new life that I was able to be given. And as fate would have it, I'm traveling from country to country. So I took a month break, and then in October I decided to retry this year-long journey again. And 3 or 4 months into this journey, I get trapped in Bali. And we could talk about that and talk about all the things I learned and all of the spiritual coincidences that just led me to where I am now. But that's pretty much the story.
Elton, thank you for sharing your story with us. If we go back to the message from God, do you think it was
Mhm.
literal, like give away all your stuff like you did? Or do you think it was a prelude to this NDE and he was giving you a message of letting everything go?
Absolutely. Like absolutely. Like it was just the timing of everything. It was because I remember I got the message on July 5th. We had shot an episode of the travel show in New Orleans, and I was in the middle of like the street, and I have pictures of the day, and I just got this message, and I was like, and so I spent the rest of July kind of going back and forth, like, and go where? Where am I going to leave my stuff? Like literally having this conversation with God, and God just said, let it go. That was it. I'm only going to say this once. Like there was no other conversation behind it. And so then we get to August, I had started to prepare. So basically, when I got the message in July, I started to prepare. And by the time we got to August, that was like flash sale on everything I owned. I had my dream apartment in downtown LA. I was living in Los Angeles, and I had my Dream Furniture, and I just gave everything away. I didn't even sell it. I just gave it away. And so I just remember that it was just something on my heart. It was like on my heart to release, to surrender. And so I have absolutely no doubt that that message and me following that message was uh, me getting the greatest gift of this near death experience, because I look at it as a gift.
When you had this conversation with God, was it like a download and you interpreted it, or were you literally having a conversation and hearing his voice?
So I would say it was like a whisper. That's the best way I could say it. Or have you ever heard of human design?
I have not.
Okay, so human design is this really cool modality. It's based around astrology, the chakra system. It's based around the I Ching, a couple other, the Kabbalah, and it's this very deeply spiritual system that shows how our energetic blueprints work. And when I got into Bali, I got deep into it. So right now I'm an intuitive human design reader. So I read human design for a lot of high ticket clients, like Lenny Kravitz is one of my clients. A ton of high performing millionaires and actors are my clients. So I was doing so basically the same Hollywood clients that I would shoot, I was now doing human design readings for. It's really cool. I need to read yours one day. And anywho, they talk about the spleen center. So we have these 9 different centers in our body: the throat chakra, you've heard of that, the crown chakra, and et cetera. And so the spleen center, when I did my deep dive into that center or that chakra, I found out that voice is really tuned to your instincts and is attached to your sacral chakra. And that voice, it says in human design that the voice speaks one time and it speaks in a whisper. And I feel like that was exactly what it was. It was the voice of God, and it was my instincts, it was my intuition, but it was in that voice of a whisper.
You encountered 4 beings during this
Mhm.
experience, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm asking you to make a guess, but who do you think they were?
I think it was, I don't know. Like I said, the energy felt very feminine. I could not see any faces. And I just remember there was a lot of height. There was, and it sounds so cliche. It was so weird. Like, it sounds so cliche, but I just remember it was like it was a flow they had to them. Um, and I would say it was probably like one of the whatever soul tribe I'm a part of. I don't know if it's like a Palladian or Arcturian, or I haven't really done a lot of research into that. You know about all that stuff, right?
Yeah. When you
Yeah.
start using the words Pleiadian and Arcturian, you're talking about ETs.
Yeah. So, and I think, but I do think that ETs are literally extraterrestrial or alien is literally another level of consciousness. So that's definitely one of the downloads I got, is that we're right now we're in the third dimension and in the 3D reality, so we can touch things, we can feel things, but we all know that this experience is really our soul's experience. This is just a meat suit that we're in. So, sure, I'm a black man, but am I really, it's like, am I really, like, not at all? And one of the things that I love about this experience, and we could come back to the 4 beings, but one of the things is that I love about this experience is that I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, with no white people. Like, I was just surrounded by black people. I went to a black college, like a historically black college called Florida A&M. And so my whole life was just, I'm in the culture. That's where I shine. Even a lot of the celebrities I work with were, black people. But I've never, in all my years, I've just never felt oppressed. And I've never like dealt with race. Like, I've never felt racism. I've never felt like, oh, it's so hard being a black man. Like, and I think that's very important to say. Um, Maybe it's a privilege that I don't have that experience, but what happened after the NDE is that I was able to travel to all these countries, and some of my best friends are literally not black now. Like I met, you know, I got friends that are like half Jewish, and I mean half white, half Jewish, and half Sri Lankan. I have friends that are Korean. I have friends that are from Russia and Australia, and every single race. And so the NDE just shed a lot of the weight that we feel here in America surrounding race. And it removed that completely. I never really carried it, but I really love that being in Bali, I all I see now is souls and frequency and energy, hands down. So when we go back to the four figures, I think that was my entrance into what that really is. I feel like the entrance is whatever those figures were, they were ushering me into the release of this facade that we call our bodies.
Do you feel that time either sped up, slowed down, or it didn't exist at all?
It didn't exist at all. There was no time, and it was like a flow state, if you will. So if for my people that are listening, if you've ever been in a flow state, it felt like that. Have you ever heard of this movie called Soul? It was a Pixar movie.
Is that like an animated movie?
Yeah, it's a Pixar animated movie.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, Jeff, you have to watch it. It is literally explains my experience. It's like, and it's a kids movie. uh, and it talks about this before our souls come down to earth, we're in this realm of nothingness. And so then the souls, when it's their time to uh incarnate on earth, then they pick a body, but they have like this imprint on them where they have this special gift. And so each soul, before they come down to earth, they're like, oh, you have this gift of this, you have this gift of this. And you come down, and no matter what body you're in, you carry that gift. And it is your purpose on earth to remember that gift in this lifetime. And for the souls that didn't remember their gift, they would be depressed here on earth. They would be miserable. And you could see their souls on the soul realm. They've lost all of their spark. And then when you die in this physical body, then you go back up to the soul realm, and you get kind of like, almost like, how like with an iPhone, you erase it. And so now it's just back to factory settings. So that's what happens in the movie. So that movie was, I said, whoever made this movie had an NDE.
Well, what is your gift?
So it's so, I know what it is, but I'll dumb it down to its connection. I have a uncanny knack for connecting with human beings, to the point where when I speak in a very particular voice, when I speak from my soul, when I channel messages from the divine now, I always get hit up by, like, they always go viral when I talk in this particular voice, because I could connect with anybody. I've had people call me, like, if I make certain videos and I speak certain ways, my DMs will pack up with messages, like hundreds of messages. Hey, I know this sounds weird. I have never reached out to somebody, a stranger online, but I feel the need to talk to you. Jeff, this happens to me. Like, that's why sometimes I don't like to appear on camera and talk. Not because I don't love talking to human beings and connecting, but it's a lot. Like, it'll be like, it could be upwards of 100 messages. And they all say the exact same thing. I have never in my life wanted to reach out to somebody, but something about your energy, and it's every race, it's every age, it's every gender. And I am learning that whatever that gift is that I have of connection, I am starting to learn to be able to put it into my content so that when I put my a certain frequency into my content, that the people that it's meant for, they can receive the message, they can receive the energy that I put into the message, and they don't necessarily need to talk to me because I put it all in the message for people. And but I love opportunities like this to be on a podcast because I love and always come to my podcast blind because I love the exchange of energy uh, and to see where our connections actually are.
During your experience, did you feel overwhelming joy or peace?
I was a little scared. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was a little scared. I wasn't ready to die at all. I was not ready to die. Like life was really, really good. But I was when this happened, I was 37. And so I didn't, that was 2019. So I was 37. So I didn't want to, I was like, I still got life to live, you know? I still got my 40s, my 50s. So that was the only thing. It was I was definitely scared that I would not be able to live out the rest of my life.
After your NDE, have you noticed that you have any new abilities that could be considered psychic?
Jeff, don't tell anybody. Please don't tell anybody. But oh my gosh, I am so freaking psychic. It's terrifying. Um, when are you into astrology at all? I don't know if you're into astrology.
We talk about it from time to time.
Okay. So when after my NDE, like before my NDE, I was never into astrology, and I started diving into all these different books of all these thought leaders and spiritual leaders. Everybody from Eckhart Tolle to Dolores Cannon to Wayne Dyer, who's one of my favorites, and in particular Abraham Hicks. And you know her, right?
I haven't had her as a guest, but I'm aware of her.
Okay. So I started to read all of these books and watch all of their videos on YouTube. And I wanted to deny my gift, but I really feel it's around, my gift would be around, um, it has to deal with connection, but it's this uncanny, I don't know, like communication through energy and thought. So I can, what happens a lot is people will call me or see me and say, Elton, I was just talking about you. You were just on my heart. I just like it happens all the time. Like if I go to another city or like even still like when I lived in New York for 3 months from this summer. So literally this summer I was living in New York. And I would say like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, people would be walking by and say, oh my gosh, I follow you on TikTok. New York is a big freaking city. And I'm like, why does this keep happening? Like I would be on a train and people would be like, I know this sounds crazy, but I know you from TikTok and I love your messages. I love your words. So whatever, I don't know how to define it, but I do know that I brought up Abraham Hicks because I found out that me and her have the same birthday. So we're both born on March 5th, and I'm a Pisces sun, I'm a Cancer moon, and I'm a Scorpio rising. So I am, in fact, all water signs. So a lot of my life has been centered around water. When I travel, I typically travel to bodies of water. I live in Miami now, which is close to the ocean. I grew up in Detroit, which is surrounded by the Great Lakes. So to me, water, being a water sign, is super important. So I know that my gift has something to do with water. It has something to do with connection to the ocean that is the all of us. And I just feel energetically safe no matter where I go uh, because I have found home within myself after traveling to all those different countries. So it could be a little bit of clairvoyance. It could be a little bit of like seeing things. And oh yeah, I could say this. I can literally see what's best for other people. Like I can coach you onto like what your purpose is for sure.
As a water signed person, do you feel any connection to Atlantis?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel like uh a connection to like Poseidon a lot. Like Poseidon is my homie. That's what I think about more than anything.
Have you been to Greece? Do
I've
you
been
feel
to
do you feel any attraction? Well, I guess Bali too is an island too, so all these places could be in a way water places.
oh yeah, I've been to Santorini. I love Greece. I've been to Mykonos, Santorini. I really, really love Greece. I would say that I'm more of a Indian Ocean kind of guy. I typically like being in the Indian Ocean, so places that border that are really like my kind of vibe.
So, in what other ways have you changed due to this experience?
I think that when we talk about astrology, there's this concept, this idea called the South Node and the North Node. And the easiest way I can explain is they're kind of like your internal portals. And so for the first 37 to 40 years of your life, you're living in your South Node. And then after that, you have this thing called a Uranian opposition. So the planet Uranus is kind of like one of the destroyer planets. So that's why a lot of people have this midlife crisis. That's why they change their careers at 40. That's why life really begins at 40. And again, I think it was so, again, there's so much synchronicity that I had this huge experience at this age. And your South Node transfers from the South Node to the North Node. And the North Node is basically your purpose on this earth. So my South Node life was Capricorn. If you know anything about Capricorn, that's all about like work ethic. It's about being grounded. It's an earth sign. So my first 37 to 40 years being in my Capricorn South Node, that's why I was so successful. Everything I did from work to sports to photography, I was super successful. And then now, when I switched over to my North Node, which is in Cancer, uh, in the ninth house, Cancer is about being nurturing. It's another water sign. It's also my moon sign. So I was doing the research, and literally, the Cancer part of me is meant to nurture and meant to be a philosopher that wanders around the world and brings in these messages and these stories, and then tell these stories that help heal people and help raise the consciousness of the world. And so this is literally in my astrology. And I also have my Akashic records read before. So a woman found me on TikTok. She found my TikTok. She said, "Oh my gosh, I have a message for you," and she gave me my Akashic records. Have never met this woman, don't know her, and my Akashic records said ultimately the same thing. It said that I am I forgot, a herald, Herald, a herald uh, for the esoteric experiences of it all. So basically, my job is to be an esoteric translator, but with a nurturing spirit. So I'm supposed to take all these esoteric experiences and synchronicities that I experienced and moments and views in this NDE, and I'm supposed to translate it into package stories for the collective to come together with and surround.
Earlier, you mentioned coincidences. Can you share some of those with us?
Yes, my biggest coincidence in my entire life. This is it. So, uh, one of my favorites. I have a billion, but this is probably my favorite. So, remember after I survived malaria, had my near death experience, I decided to continue my travels. And my birthday is on March 5th, like I mentioned earlier. And I said, I want to be in India for a holy festival during, with the paint splashing and the big parties. So I've always wanted to go. And so I decided, so this is my 38th birthday. And I said, I want to go to India for my birthday. But a friend had told me that Goa, which is my favorite place in the world, Goa is a place, a city in southwest India, and it is like a beach town. It was colonized by the Portuguese. So it's like, Jeff, it is the best vibe. So back in the day, back in like the 60s and 70s, it was a huge place. All the hippies went to Goa, GOA. So the whole place feels like the hippie movement from the 60s and the 70s. It feels like that. And you get there and it's just like a beach town. But like, Jeff, the idea that I decided to spend my birthday in Goa, all because one woman told me you should go to Goa. And I was like, you know what? Sure, why not? So I'm in Goa. I'm sleeping in like these huts. I'm sleeping in tree houses. I'm in the water. I'm eating food. Like I'm just like, Jeff, I could cry. I felt like I must have been reincarnated from a hippie that was out there, specifically a woman. I know that I am reincarnated from a white hippie woman that lived in Goa. I don't know her name, but I hope to find it out one day. But I felt like myself. So it was the morning of my birthday, and I wake up at like 5 a.m. I'm in tears because I was still healing from like some really close friendships ending, and just I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I didn't feel like I could be a photographer anymore. So it was a lack of identity. I didn't really have any identity at all. And so I remember waking up on the morning of my birthday, my 38th birthday, March 5th, and I'm in the water. I am like making videos, talking to myself because this is like my video diary. I'm crying. I'm just like, but it was more of a release than it was a sadness. And after like hours of sitting on the beach watching the sunrise, it's like I would say close to 8 a.m., 9 a.m. And I said, I really want a smoothie. So they had this line of little restaurants and smoothie shops. It's very cute. It's a very nice little place, very up to date. And so I'm looking at all the smoothie shops and I choose one. And so the smoothie shop restaurant I chose was super packed. Uh, and I ordered my smoothie and I'm looking for like a place to sit. And there's this table where it's two girls and one guy. And that was the only seat in this entire restaurant, pretty sizable restaurant. And so I go over to them and I say, hey, is it cool if I sit here while I wait for my smoothie? And they were like, sure, of course. So I sit next to everybody and I introduce myself. And the guy that I'm sitting next to, his name is Connor. Young white guy. I think he was like 20 something. Yeah, in his 20s, like 26, 27. And so everybody's talking and, we're like, what's everybody's story? And so the two girls were traveling together and Connor was traveling alone. He said he had started traveling in September. And he said he went to all these different countries and he used to work on Wall Street and he just got burned out. He had started doing Vipassanas and meditation. And he was like, he ended up here and he was like, and then the two girls were like, but tell him that today's your birthday. And I said, what the And they were like, I was like, what? He was like, yeah, today's my birthday. And I just met them. So we just decided to get a smoothie because it's my birthday. I said, no, Connor. I said, what day were you born? He said, March 5th. I said, today's my birthday. And it was like, the girls' mouth were on the floor and nobody, but like we had to pull out our IDs. Cause we all have met people that share our same birthday. Sure. That happens. Like I got a couple friends that are my birthday twins. And, you know, but the fact that we met each other in this smoothie shop, and I promise you, Jeff, there was no other seats in this place. And we met on our birthday with the same birthday. We had both started traveling in September and we both had tried to heal so many things. And so what ended up happening, me and Connor, we were like locked like that. So we ended up traveling around India together for about 3 or 5 days, just because we knew we had to. So we just went to all these different cities. We got pictures together. We just had conversations. And that was probably the most beautiful synchronicity of my entire life. There's a ton more, but that's the one that I just absolutely love.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what type of advice would you give?
I would say honestly that we are all one. I think more than anything, when it comes to grief of a lost one, I try to be very gentle. I try to just be a source of listening and energy and that type of thing, because I would say people get triggered by the idea that, you know, there's my experience was more of a oneness than it was of a heaven with a pearly gates, and you see your grandma with a gown on, and you see your ex, your friends or whatever. And I typically don't try to share that or center my experience in somebody else's grieving process at all. Because I know when I even said it on my TikTok, I said it was less of a place where I see people. I just felt energy. Um, but I think that with grieving, I'm very, very sensitive to it. So I try not to say much, to be honest. I don't give advice. I don't give, my perspective. I just try to be a neutral source of comfort for people.
Out of all the content that you've produced, spiritually speaking, what do you think has resonated the most with people?
I have two sides to that story. So uh, in the beginning, and I would say 2021 is when I learned about human design. I started a podcast while living in Bali, and I talked to a lot of different um, spiritual people. And get this, you heard of Deepak Chopra, right?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm from Detroit. So I named my podcast Detroit Chopra.
Hmm.
So it was like, spirituality with more of an urban spin on it. And I would say that in that era, I felt like I had a bit of a spiritual ego, to be honest, because I hadn't fully integrated my whole experience. This was like maybe a year after my near death experience, a year and a half after my near death experience when I stepped into this realm. But I remember I had one of my most impactful episodes, and it was entitled "You Are God." And this episode was with my spiritual mentor. She's the woman that actually taught me how to do human design. Her name is Jazz, and she's a Black woman from America. And she ended up getting into human design. She was married with 2 kids, and they all ended up moving to Bali. So the concept of "you are God" can be triggering to a lot of people who hold so firmly to religion. But I remember for me, that episode of my show healed me beyond. It was the energy exchange between me and her, the conversation and the mind opening was definitely my favorite podcast episode. And then after that, I came back to America and I let go of my spiritual ego. I said, I want to go back to the old Elton because he was successful. He shot all these celebrities. He was able to travel. He was a photographer. He was popular. And so I tried to come back to LA in 2022. And that was the worst decision ever because coming from a place like Bali, which they call Mother Bali, it has the feminine energy, it's receiving, it's receptive. I wake up every day. My biggest decision was which shop was I going to get a coconut from. Like that was my biggest, hardest task in the day. And then to come back to America, let alone Los Angeles, which is that's a rough place to be surrounded by capitalism, and to go from a feminine energy to masculine completely destroyed me. So I developed a dependency on weed. I developed a dependency on other pills and party drugs. I developed an addiction, or we'll just say addiction, with sex and porn, and all of the identity that I had built up in the spiritual space after my NDE in Bali was now dissolving into my dark night of the soul.
This was after your NDE?
After my NDE. So from 2019 was my NDE, and 2020 was my experience meeting my birthday twin. That was when I was living in Bali. That was like my exploration, so literally I was full spiritual awakening. And so I was started to make content while in Bali from my spiritual experience. And so a lot of those videos and concepts resonated with people. And that's when I started the Detroit Chopra podcast and all that. But I was like, it's not sustainable. And I missed the culture. I said, I miss my culture. I miss the music. This was the time that Popeye's chicken sandwiches had just come out. And I was like, I want to taste the freaking Popeye's chicken sandwich. So I decided to come back to America because I knew I couldn't stay in Bali forever. But my whole time in Bali is about 18 months. And so I come back to America and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here? I can't do the spiritual stuff. So that's why I went back to photography. And that was the worst. I won't say it's the worst decision, but it had to happen. It was necessary. And so now, after those 3 years, I lived in LA from May of 2022 to May of 2025. And I would say last October, I started a TikTok. I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't want it to be popular. I had a huge following on Instagram, and I told nobody. I just started making TikToks to the void. And as I started making TikToks, then people started following me, and I started talking about spirituality. But I was happy with only having 200 views. I was happy with that small amount of people, but people started finding me. Every time I would talk about something from like my spiritual past, people would be like, oh my gosh, tell me more. Then I would be quiet again. And I would just talk about stupid stuff like movies or whatever. Then I would get a decision to talk about spirituality again, and it would happen again. And so I would say in this new iteration, I would honestly say that I had a big video about, it was about nihilism. And I was so frustrated because I was terrified to talk about spirituality, but that's the only thing that I would be trying to come up. And I would be scared because I had such a wound from talking about spirituality, because on the outside, people see this spiritual energy, they feel it, but on the inside, I'm still smoking weed. I'm still battling this sex addiction. I'm still feeling like a hypocrite. And this is like October, Jeff. This isn't years ago. This is very, very recently. And I moved down here with my parents. I'm on my mom's balcony, my dad's balcony, and I make this video about my life sucks because I just feel like nothing is filling me up. Nothing is giving me a spark. Nothing is making me excited. I've been to all these countries in the world, and I absolutely don't care about and I don't know what I'm going to do. I just trauma dump on the internet. And that video went viral, and that video caused a lot of people to relate and send messages. That video was like a month ago. It was maybe like November 10th or something. And that video sparked this new identity as the integrated Elton. And I'm able to finally start showing up as myself And as soon as I started speaking in that voice that I had thought I abandoned, what I realized is that this is my honest and true and authentic integrated voice. Because I was able to have the NDE, I was able to experience Bali and all the synchronicities and meet all of the spiritual healers. And then I was meant to come back to America and go back to hell and have my dark night of the soul so that I could see the shadow and heal the shadow and finally integrate the shadow. And so now the voice that I speak with, I remember journaling, Jeff, that I wanted to be on podcasts a week ago. I said, you know what? I'm finally ready to be back on podcasts and start talking. And you are one of the 4 podcasts that I'm going to be on in the next 7 days. So I know that I'm back. I know that I'm fully integrated. And I know that on the other side of all of this crazy journey, that now my next mission is to help as many people through their own dark night of the souls and their own spiritual awakenings and their own journeys within, not as a guru, not as a coach, but just literally creating content that helps guide you back to yourself. That's it. That's all I got for you.
Even though you had the NDE, you've still had ups and downs in life, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
It's not like all of a sudden you transformed into this, like you said, a spiritual guru or
This
something.
spiritual guru, no. Mm-mm. I still curse. I still I still present as myself. And I think it's very important that because a lot of people stop at that spiritual ego and they get disillusioned. You go to their TikTok pages, all the same fonts and colors and, sparkles and, it's that's fine. Everybody's journey is different. But I just know that the real and what I'm seeing, like Jeff, literally, as soon as I started posting in this integrated body, everything I post just goes viral. And it doesn't feed my ego. It's not like, oh, I got followers now. Like it doesn't, that's not how it processes. It's like, wow, this is my assignment. I know that there is purpose in us talking, and me showing up as myself. I got on a jersey and a gold chain. Like, I don't look like any spiritual guru. I'm just myself.
I think people resonate with that, the authenticity, not the pretense that you are a spiritual guru.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. I don't want that. I don't want that kind of responsibility.
Well, if people want to find out more about your content, where should they go?
Oh, yes. Okay. So the places where I'm living now, I'm building up this I like to call myself a digital daddy because I want to create safe spaces on the internet for people that are seeking guidance to themselves. And my favorite places right now are YouTube, which is my YouTube is Elton Raw, L10RAW. L10 is my nickname, L10, if you guys can see, because that's Elton phonetically. So L10, Elton. And the raw stands for reality is already written, because I feel like who we are has already been coded in us. It's just our journey on this earth to remember that code and to unlock it and to step into our full gifts. And so Elton Raw across all platforms, Elton Raw on Substack. You can follow that newsletter and you can get my writings. And then Elton Raw on TikTok. That's where I get on there and I talk spiritual from time to time.
From what you said, it sounds like you get a ton of DMs. So if people want to ask you a question, should they leave you comments and videos or what?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. So I would say DMs are fine. I welcome all DMs. If I sometimes I can answer them, sometimes I can't. I would say I love a comment better because I really want my comment section to be a safe space for people. So in the comment section, as you saw, that's the only reason we're talking. People are dropping names of podcasts. People are dropping books. People are sharing their stories. So I know that a successful post is good when we create the community. So my community is actually called the Raw Collective. And so what I would tell people to do is get into a comment section and start to use your own voice in the comment section. And I read the comments I read the comments all day. So if it's something that I need to reply to that can help everybody, that's the best place for me. And then if you join the newsletter, The Raw Collective, then I will send you multiple newsletters a week that tend to answer the questions that are in the comments. So you could I'll pull like different comments of the week and kind of answer them and maybe even leave video pieces and all that. So that's more of the thing because I would say that when I was doing one-on-one readings, whether it was a celebrity or a normal regular person, they are draining. It is so draining to do because the way that I read human design is very, 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 very deep. And it take me hours to do a full read on you. It would take me like 2 or 3 hours because I'm pulling from so many different sources and I want to give you all of the information. And I realize that I don't have the capacity to do that. Like I'll do it. It might be cost you $10,000, but one-on-ones aren't really my thing at this moment. But what I am growing is a cohort of people because I feel like the collective healing is is what I'm really good at building. Because remember, I'm a connector. That's my gift. So that's what I'm doing.
Elton, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
In the words of Carl Jung, wait, what's the quote? until until you make the unconscious conscious, it will define your life and you will call it fate. And I really want people to understand that our shadows, the unconscious, the things that we want to hide, that is where your gift is. That is where your light is. You have to go inward. Nothing is outside of you. You're not going to find anything outside of you because your whole life is a projection of the inside. So I am telling everybody the biggest gift I can tell you is to go into your soul, go into your subconscious, and truly, truly integrate the shadow. And then you will find your biggest gift right there.
Elton, thank you for your message and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. This was the most aligned experience ever. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your tone. I felt so welcomed, and I'm a new fan.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I wish you massive success in whatever you're doing.
Oh, yeah. I'm already successful. I already feel successful, and thank you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.